Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join our session. This is Artur Lucara, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager here at VMRay. And I'm joined by my colleague, Fatih Akar, Security Product Manager at VMRay. And first of all, before I start, a big shout out to the awesome Summit team to make this event possible. And I'm excited to be part of this event. So let's go ahead and get started. Oops. All right. So let's look at what we'll cover today in the next half hour. Overall, we're going to share our perspective on getting the most out of threat hunting, touching on several topics from threat intelligence to malware analysis. And we're going to put the advanced threat analysis as one of the core capabilities for threat hunting efforts. We will first touch on the importance of understanding the changing threat landscape and its influence on threat hunting program, all the way from forming a hypothesis to instant response. Moving forward, Fatih will deep dive into the post-macro threat actor activity and walk you through the threat analysis process, in particular link or LNK files used a lot by threat actors recently. Speaking about threat analysis, we'll also take a glimpse on how VMRay Analyzer can enable you to detonate malicious files, malicious LNK files. By the way, you can check out the Slack channel to download this presentation. I think this is something you know already. Before we start, I'm going to provide a quick overview of VMRay. Then we will dive into the topic of discussion. Built on next generation malware sandboxing, VMRay Analyzer, our flagship product, enables reliable security automation that brings in accelerated detection and response to SOC teams. VMRay Analyzer has been specifically designed to operate in sync with EDRs, source and threat intelligence tools, and capable of detecting, analyzing, and investigating advanced threats. We are providing out-of-the-box connectors as well with various tools. And for those teams who are already overloaded with alerts, we have good news. You can also validate alerts with VMRay to filter out false positives and enrich reports with actionable malware intelligence. So rolling back to our main topic of discussion and moving forward, let's talk a little bit about threat landscape. And really, my goal here is to step back and point out the relevance and standpoint of threat hunters from a different perspective. Laid out on this slide, we see some of the evolving attack vectors and tactics widely and effortlessly available to the cyber criminals. You all know about these, so nothing special here. New vulnerabilities, new malware builders, new tactics, social engineering, zero-day exploits, and one more item here is unattended digital assets like the RDP ports, which is kind of common, open to the internet. No doubt there is more, but these are the most common ones. As a matter of fact, the question before each actually SOC practice, including threat hunting, should be which of these new vectors we're gonna prioritize, and how can we optimize the defenses to address this actual threat? The reality is the speed of their adaptation is faster than our optimization. And this unequal equation causes blind spots and gaps. This is also the truth for the great tactic transition we're gonna speak a lot about today due to the blocking of macros. It wouldn't be wrong to put it this way. The weather is always changing, and threat hunting can allow us to adapt to these changing conditions and to fix the blind spots. Obviously, the blocking of macro and XL4 by Microsoft had a huge influence on the threat landscape. In particular, ransomware actors used to send out phishing emails, exploit malicious macros to gain a foothold in the network. And now they're changing their TTPs and adapt. So moving on, let's take a look at our approach to a threat hunting program at VMRay, where, as you can see, advanced threat analysis capability is built into it. From the top to bottom, we see different layers here. Each of these layers help us to make sure our efforts to hunt for hidden adversaries are on track and will pay off in the long run. The idea here is to augment your existing detection and threat intelligence tools to use your time as effective as possible by forming better informed hypotheses, building, and eventually hunting. Secondly, this way, we can also see the gaps in our program, particularly due to changing threat landscape. Starting off with threat intelligence, first we pick our weapon, right? IOC-driven or TTP-driven. Then we start threat hunting by forming a hypothesis. Then it's likely that we encounter some suspicious files or URLs. At this point, we would like to shed some light on these and have accurate verdicts with some rich context, because we would like to provide our detection engineers and instant responders high fidelity and actionable intelligence. Through deep threat analysis, we can extract IOCs, produce our own intelligence, and form a better hypothesis for threat hunting. So in case of a changing landscape, you can create productive and iterative loops like this one on this slide. Let's explain it in plain text. Detection tools are optimized to protect against malicious macros, and detection rates can be expected to be low for zip, ISO, link files for some time. It's not always easy and fast to, turn the wheel and adapt. We as defenders, we need to consider that the technologies that are currently in use for prevention and detection purposes need to prioritize and optimize too. We know that they have default settings, and there is an unavoidable trade-off between optimization and blind spots. As part of optimization, for instance, they have concerns around generating less alerts by design. So for productivity, do what matters most. Advanced threat analysis solution like VMRay, on the other hand, have little to no concerns like that. There is a moving target now. There is a big change in email threat landscape, blocking of macros, etc. With the shown loop including threat analysis, you can call it malware sandboxing, and threat hunting, it can be possible to fill in these gaps effectively. And by design at VMRay, we can analyze various file formats, find out if it is malicious at any given time. This is kind of a reserved power to hunt the moving targets. And here are some of the benefits of threat analysis to generate actionable threat intelligence and eventually get the most out of your threat hunting efforts. First, context is king. Analyzing threats can allow you to contextualize existing threats in your environment. You can submit the files that you found in your environment. You can analyze campaigns or individual threats targeting your organization. Global threat intelligence is good, but nobody wants raw IOCs without any context. It's all about answering the so what question, right? Secondly, if you have SOAR playbooks in place, having the ability to uncover the previously unseen malware and its behavior allows you to accelerate and enhance the alert enrichment processes. And third, for those of you who are closely monitoring the TTP shifts of prevalent malware families, you will be able to identify these shifts when you put threat analysis as an integral part of your threat intelligence and hunting programs. And last but not least, automation is our friend. False positives are our enemy. It's likely that you're reserving a couple of hours weekly, maybe less, to threat hunting. So effectivity is key, right? With VMRay, you can run automation to share extracted IOCs from malware you found in your environment. With EDR, SOAR, or TIP tools, you don't have to waste your time for filtering out the influx of false positive alerts with false IOCs. And with that, I would like to pass the mic to Fatih.
Thanks, Arturo. You laid a great foundation to what I'm going to elaborate on in the next couple of minutes. So analyzing advanced threats in the post-macro world. It's just a fancy name for what the adversaries are, how the adversaries are changing their tactics, and what caused this idea. And you know, I'm just going to start my talk with giving a little bit of a background. As the vast majority of people in the cybersecurity industry know, one of the most prevalent types of malware out there is macro malware, and they are still strong and still high in the number of occurrences in the wild. And the first occurrence of this type of malware was seen in 1999 with a virus called Melissa. And Melissa made history as the first macro virus with an email worm trait and started spreading via email on March 26, 1999, infecting tens of thousands within hours. It was one of the most serious epidemics in the internet history. And this is a memorable example of macro malware. The malware was embedded in a Microsoft Word file, and when opened, it would email itself to the first 50 contacts in the victim's address book, though it didn't cause much damage to individual users, aside from accidentally causing several mail services to DDoS. But still, the total worth of damages caused was estimated at $80 million, and the attacker was sentenced to 20 months in federal prison. And from then on, more than 2 decades, it has been one of the most popular attack vectors to execute malicious code on remote systems to gain control. There were a few reasons for this vector to become this successful. And the first reason would be that in Microsoft Office products, it is possible to use scripting languages to execute arbitrary programs, so-called macros. Everyone knows it, right? And you can execute them independently of the platform. For example, a malicious Excel document can run on different versions of Windows operating system. And the other reason was that due to the complex program and data structures of the scripting languages, macroviruses presented defenders with barely solvable challenges. And on top of that, Microsoft initially did not give antivirus companies any insight in the early days. Another reason that made macroviruses so successful was that the source code of the malware was present in every copy. With a few changes in the code, you could come up with your own virus. And this lowered the entry barrier for the minimum required level of expertise to conduct such a malicious act. And probably one of the last reasons, of course, the reasons would not be limited to what I'm saying here. Maybe there might be more reasons follows this. But one thing that makes the thing appealing for the attackers, for the adversaries, is the Microsoft Office programs are present on the majority of the client endpoints in almost any enterprise network out there. And so it's so it's such an appealing way to conduct your attack on, and definitely it has been addressed by Metro Attack Framework. It's called user execution malicious file, where an adversary may just rely upon a user just clicking on a malicious file and start executing it. This is probably going to be wrapped around with like a spear phishing attack. And here we can see the file types that are most frequent in this, which is like a document files, like the doc.pdfs and Excel files. But what I'm going to say here and explain in a little bit is that these are just shifting towards the LNK files. And maybe some container files like ISO and RAR. So when we look at what Microsoft has published about the changes regarding Office macros a couple of months ago, we can see that Microsoft is shifting large concepts heavily to make things more secure. That change includes the default macro disabling policy for the files that came from the internet, and macros will be blocked by default in all of Office documents downloaded from the internet. This means that users cannot enable macro content with a simple click. Instead, blocking will be the default behavior. Factors like the source of the file, like trusted location and trusted document, and the sender's digital signature play an essential role in determining whether the macros in download documents will be allowed to run. And to more elaborate on how it is being done, we need to talk about the mark of the web, right? Understanding mark of the web is essential to understanding Microsoft's protection mechanism to fend against macro-infected Office documents. The MOTW is an attribute assigned to any file downloaded from the internet and is compatible with the NTFS file system. Any file downloaded from the internet possesses an alternate data stream which contains information about the file. And one such attribute of the ADS is the zone identifier. Probably a lot of people know about this already. And modern browsers automatically add the zone information when downloading the file to an NTFS system. And the zone identifier indicates the source or the zone of the file. The zones are, as you can see in the slides, is the internet, the restricted zone, the local machine, and the intranet, and the trusted zone. And each zone facilitates a different behavior concerning the file and how the system accesses it, as you can see in the flowchart on the slide. Let's look at what it looks like, what the change looks like from the end user's perspective. As you can see in the previous version, the user could still enable the macro content easily, as the warning displayed on the top in yellow even has a button to make this easier. But however, in the current version, the user cannot enable the execution of macros easily, as they need to go through a different route. This was a really challenging task to do from Microsoft's perspective, and that is one of the reasons that the macro malware was around for this long. And based on the immediate feedback they have received, they had to roll back this update. But finally, 3 weeks ago, Microsoft resumed the rollout of the VMRay macro auto blocking, and they finally did it. From now on, Office documents will be safer. Not completely safe, definitely, but safer. So this is a very good change for us security practitioners and the end users. But we know that this auto blocking change was not so welcomed by the adversaries, as some of them needed to burn some of their tools and weapons and had to change their TTPs. This has brought about a massive shift in the email threat landscape, as we know. Predominantly, threat actors distributed macro-infected Office documents and phishing emails, and attempted to lure users into enabling macros on the downloaded files. With the protection now offered by the mark of the web, threat actors are attempting to bypass that by using container file formats such as ISO, RAR, and zip files. In addition, file formats such as Windows shortcuts, DLLs, and executables are used. And a lot of security vendors published a lot of things about this shift. And if you look at what Proofpoint says that from October 2021 through June 2022, threat actors have pivoted away from macro-enabled documents attached directly to messages to deliver malware, and have increasingly used container files such as ISO and RAR attachments and Windows shortcut files, which are link files or LNK files. According to an analysis of campaign threats, which include threats manually analyzed and contextualized by Proofpoint threat researchers, the use of macro-enabled attachments by threat actors decreased approximately 66% between October 2021 and June 2022. And on top of that, there is another research from SentinelOne, and that research says that Windows Explorer is the top initial living of the land binary. and the chain of low events that threat actors abuse to execute malware through malicious Windows shortcut files. And their mass analysis of more than 27,000 representative malicious link files from VirusTotal revealed that the LNK files are currently immensely popular among threat actors for malware deployment and persistence. The actors behind the Content Builder tool for building malicious link files advertise the tool and the value of link files to threat actors by claiming that Office macros are for the most part dead as a medium for deploying malware, referring to Microsoft's recent decision to disable by default Office macro execution in the context of documents that originate from untrusted sources. And on top of the recent articles that have been published on this specific topic, we also wanted to state that, hey, we are seeing the same thing, the same trend on our platform. Research that we have done ourselves at VMRay also confirms what other security vendors are claiming. In the graph here, you can see the data chart constructed by the data we got from our malware analysis and threat detection platform, which is called VMRay Analyzer. You can see that in the blue line, the malicious documents with macros are decreasing, in contrast to the increase we see for shell link files in the last 2 quarters. Of course, this chart is on a logarithmic scale instead of a linear scale, which means that the malicious macro threats are still being seen multiple times more than the shell link files. However, logarithmic scale charts can usually be a good indicator to see the shifts in trends, and this is exactly what we're aiming to show here. So again, by no means that the malicious documents with macros are dead. They are still there. However, the great migration apparently has already started around March. So I just wanted to share a bit of background in the LNK files itself. So shell link binary file format contains information that can be used to access another data object. LNK is a file name extension for shortcuts to local files in Windows. These shortcuts provide quick access to executable files without the users navigating the program's full path. And the files with shell link binary file format contain metadata about the executable file, including the original path to the target application. And Windows uses this data to support the launching of applications, linking of scenarios, and storing applications references to a target file. And we all use LNK files as shortcuts in various places like our desktop, control panel, task menu, and Windows Explorer. And such files typically look legitimate and may have an icon that the same as an existing application or document, but the bad actors incorporate malicious code into LNK files. Like think about a malicious, nasty PowerShell code execution scenario, allowing the execution of the payload on the target machine. And with that, I'd like to tie this presentation to a demo to show how you can boost productivity in the threat hunting and detection engineering workflows that you have in your organization by using the VMRay Analyzer. With VMRay Analyzer, security teams analyze such files in a much more time-efficient manner by lowering the expertise barrier and decreasing the time required to maintain such an environment to analyze threats like malicious shell link files that we have been talking about in this presentation. And here, you're seeing the VMRay Analyzer's web user interface, right? On here, we see that this is a Windows batch file. It's a shell link file with the .lnk extension, and it has been analyzed in our platform and automatically picked up as malicious and classified as a downloader and tied to the operations of Emotet. And in the overview section, we are showing the VMRay threat identifiers, which are the behavioral or static rules that indicates a maliciousness inside of them. And on the top of them, we see the extracted configuration, which we're going to talk about in a second. In this case, this is an Emotet configuration that was extracted. And here we see there is a defense evasion attempt to obscure a file's origin. And there's a Yara match, an antivirus match. And also this sample is doing a lot of nasty stuff in the host that is related to discovery and to networking things. If you go scroll down a bit in the report to see what's happening in the process tree, we see that this is a LNK file, but it started as a cmd.exe and then continued to PowerShell.exe and then the rec srv32.exe and then continued to do whatever it's trying to do, right? And definitely this is something that indicates some maliciousness inside of it. And here you see the MITRE attack mapping of the entire behavior rules over there. I know it's an old version, but it's still useful. In the persistence, we can see that the sample tries to create a new service. And in the defense evasion column, we see that there's a malicious with red label, a technique that is called NTFS file attribute. And here is just using it to defense evade that the rec srv32.exe tries to delete the zone identifier of a certain file to just obscure the origin of the file. You see, we talk about the zone identifiers and stuff, and these files are still manipulating that, right? And now we see the defense evasion over there. This is triggered, this VTI is triggered, and there's like more than couple of hundred different behavioral rules that can match on this. But if you go to the networking tab of the analysis report, we will see some connections to different countries around the world. This includes like 5 IP addresses and URLs combined. We can see the request, the HTTP request, and the exact response, and how this request has been done, with which function, and how when it is done. And we can see the raw PCAP file and download it and analyze manually if you'd like to. Of course, you can write some detection rules against these URLs and or these traffic, but these are the things that we see in the dynamic analysis environment, right? This has happened in the analysis. And the malware tried to contact these URLs to just exchange some information with its C2s. But are these things that are limited? Are the things that we can pivot our threat hunting or detection engineering is limited to pivot on these 5 URLs? If you look back to the summary page, the overview page, we can see that this malware configuration that is extracted from this sample, either the sample or the PCAP or the memory dumps that we took in the entire period of analysis. It has more than 60 different URLs that are unique and unique to the sample. Probably all of them are the C2s, and depending on the configuration of it or the host, maybe randomly, this sample is picking these URLs up and not showing all of them in the analysis. But since we were able to lock in the exact configuration extractor and was able to decode, decrypt, or do all the operations to just make it human readable, we were able to extract all of these things and show it to you. And here, this could be a really gold mine for you to just start searching for it in your environment, right? This configuration extracted does not reveal 100% all of the things that you can threat hunt on, but it's just definitely a good start for you to just look for the variants of the sample. And if you look at the behavior tab, you will be able to see all the behavioral information in that. And we see that in the first process, there is this semi-obfuscated command line that we can use to write some Sigma rules or some other rules in our EDR or any other security product. In another process, we see the host behavior, and it just has a PowerShell command line, which is obfuscated. And when if you look at the function log, we can see the exact function, exact Windows API call with the parameters, human readable parameters, and see them, how this operation is being done and when it is done throughout the analysis super timeline, right? And so you can deep dive to the modules that has been created and the environmental information. You can look at the memory dumps, the dropped files, and the process information, the registry operations, and user names that is involved in the environment to this behavior. all kinds of things that you can look and think that, hey, this could be a good way to pivot the operations of a certain malware family or certain threat, so that I can look for in our environment. These are the things that we discussed partially, but if you want to get a full overview on the indicators, we can go to the IOCs tab and see the malicious IOCs. Notice that there are domain names, file and IP addresses, and also URLs in here. This is, and also having a vertex, and we can see the exact related process command line. And yeah, these are scored because you don't want to get lost in the hundreds of different indicators. You just want to know the relevant of the most relevant of them. And you can unfilter these if you want to look to those clean ones. And if we have filtered 454 other artifacts from this report, but you can look at it if you like. That might reveal some other things, that there may be order of execution of these, or order of appearance of these IOCs can reveal some other things. That you can use all of these information to just write a better rule, or look, a better thread for you to follow on in the large scheme of things, right? So the information that is available in our analysis report is not limited with what we've shown in here in this demo. There's of course a lot of different things, and this is only an analysis that took only 2 minutes. So it's also a really time saver to analyze files in a platform like this. So yeah, definitely your threat hunting workflows, the detection engineering workflows that you have will be enhanced on a greater deal with VMRay Analyzer. So with that, I'd like to end our presentation and just jump to the Q&A section.
I am heading up here now for you. Give me 1 second. Let's see here. Question for you. Is this something that you need to run in the cloud only, or is this also available as an on-prem solution?
It is available in both cloud and on-prem. So yeah, in on-prem, it's just have a lot of different customization options, but you can do really good analysis in cloud as well.
Perfect. How well does this integrate with your existing tools? So if I have a certain SIM that I'm using, is this an easy integration?
Yes, we have almost 100% API coverage. So whatever you see in the report is accessible by our API. So all the report is programmatically accessible, and we have out-of-the-box connectors with various SIEMs, tips, and EDRs out there to enrich them and allow the other teams to also just quickly get some contextual information regarding a certain alert or offense.
Another question for you from Slack. Is VMRay a behavioral engine or static detection engine?
Great question. Actually, it is both and more. So we have the reputation engine being kicking in the first second to know if the file is being seen anywhere out there. And then we instantly do the static analysis, and we extract the embedded things, look at the strings, and do the entire virus check, and also apply YARA rules on them in seconds. And then we just put the file into the detonation environment and just give it a couple of minutes, averagely around 2 minutes, to see all the behavioral things. So, and then the report generated after these analysis workflow is going to be an aggregated